Adam, thank you for joining me here in the spoiler room. Getting to talk to you again is always a pleasure. And yeah, I only do this every so often, but I'm very excited for your new film that you decided to make, a sequel to your Alien film, Ombis. Um, I've got to ask, what was it? Because, in indie films, you don't see too many sequels being made. So what was
Yeah.
it that kind of motivated you or sparked you to say, you know what, I got to do more Ombus?
Well, to start off with, Ombis was a film that started off with no money.
Sure,
So, and it grew into something huge, man. In our community, it was a huge event.
hmm,
Hundreds of thousands of people, and not hundreds of thousands,
sure,
hundreds and thousands
right.
of people were affected by it.
Mhm.
And then it hit digital, and it was in media. I joke because it was a Netflix rental disc. Remember the one you can
Yeah.
rent
Oh,
them?
yeah. Yeah. No, I remember them. Yeah,
Yeah.
we rented them all
And
the time. Yeah.
and people would make fun of you for it in the early days. Oh, Netflix versus Blockbuster. So yeah. So what was it that made me want to tell the story? To be honest with you, I love Ombis. Ombis is my favorite film. And I told you since last time we talked, I said I recommended rather you needed to see it and
Yeah.
feel it. And this second one, it is such a clean film. When you watch the first one to the second one, you're gonna see a stark contrast, a
Hmm.
very stark contrast. And I said to myself, how can I go bigger? Because that was always the story. For 12 years trying to write it, I'm always like, well, how can I go bigger?
Right.
And I think we've been able to figure that out.
Well, I just recently rewatched Ombus 1, and looking at what you did and then seeing just little bits and pieces that you've been kind enough to throw my way, plus also reading the synopsis and all of that, the scope is definitely larger, which
Yeah.
which surprised me again for an indie film,
Yeah.
so what you said you wanted to go bigger. What extra challenges came with that?
Learning how to effectively use CGI,
Mhm.
not AI,
Sure.
CGI,
Right.
and how I could create a whole story inside of something that had already happened. And like, how could you reinvigorate it? I always used to say that you can't make a sequel to an indie film. And I still believe that to this day. But I also took a little bit of Evil Dead 2's inspiration, and you'll know more why in the
Mhm.
beginning of Ombis 2 of what I mean by that. So we do get a little bit of a recap, and it's much more grandiose than what you would have saw in the first film. In fact, you didn't see it at all. It actually shows the attack on the city, not to spoil too much with it, but it's a much bigger opening.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was excited about and wondering how you're going to approach this, because it just look because as you said, the first one was a smaller yet very well done and ambitious film that you were able to accomplish a lot there. So doing this larger scoped film, I mean, what do you got? You got more cast, more crew. What do you got that you're adding to this story? From
Well,
Ombus One.
the first thing I could tell you is my love for Ombis is immense. We didn't have any funding on the first film, so
Sure.
everybody worked for free.
Oh,
So
okay.
except a couple people that we had to specifically pay for like rentals or something.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
but for the most part, everybody worked on that project for free. And then all of a sudden it was a huge success. And I said, coming back to this film, I said the number one thing that was important to me was to treat all the actors the way that they should have been treated on the first
Mhm.
film, and if not better. So
Sure.
that was one of my first objectives coming into it. But also it took 12 years to write a good story, you
Sure.
know?
Well, and other things have advanced in those 12 years too. I mean, you've got a lot more tools, I think, for more reasonable prices and such, like production tools and that now that you can work with, I imagine, as well. That kind of helps you more fully imagine your vision than what you maybe could have done, say, 10 years ago, like 2 years after Ombis. Uh, did you?
Yeah, no,
Oh, go ahead.
I I did something totally different this time, Mark.
Mm.
I did previs.
Oh.
So most of the CGI on the film
Hmm.
is already basically completed. It has to get a clean pass, I call it, which is,
Sure.
maybe you fix something that has like static or noise in it. But overall, it's a very clean film, and oh man, I'm just so excited to share it with the world.
Now that doesn't mean that you totally abandoned your practical, which was made the first one so
Yes.
wonderfully gooey.
Yeah.
You got plenty of goo and gore going on.
Yes, and that was the other thing. This time around, I wanted there were characters in the first film that I thought could look better. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So this time I made sure every character looked better. Every single slime creature in this film has contacts. Every single slime creature has a same texture and tone. So when you're seeing them, you are seeing the same type of thing, not
Right.
different colors and different scenes. So that was a huge thing. But I got Phil and Jill back from the first film,
Mm.
and it was an honor to work with them both again. But they were the masterminds. I said
Sure.
I needed creatures, they would make me creatures, man. It was just great.
And this isn't your first venture into a larger scope project, because you've tackled something of a similar scope with your evil, horrific monsters movie
Yes.
that is in
Yeah.
the Steigert universe, the
Yeah.
cinematic universe, the SCU as I call it.
Yes.
But that was a big project too. I mean, you had like blocked off a city road with that, and I remember seeing actual cars, not just CGI. Uh,
Yeah.
what were you able to pull from, say, that experience to do Ombis 2?
I didn't want to do that again. You know, that was honestly what I took from it. Is
Sure,
it you can only be what's the phrase, a one trick pony?
sure, sure.
You can only do the same thing so many times.
Mm.
But now it's like, how do I make a better film with more effects, go bigger with blockbuster element type things?
Sure.
When I wrote this film with my wife, Kristen, we wrote this film so that at every 15 to 20 seconds of film, there's excitement. So when you start the film from start to finish, you're not gonna have a dull moment, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Hopefully that answers that question.
Oh yeah, no, it does. It does. And how did that writing process go? You wrote it with your wife. You said it took 12 years for this project
Mhm.
to kind of come to fruition. But how did the writing process go? Did you write a few pages? Did she, or did you go back and forth?
Well, initially, right after Ombus 1 wrapped, all the original producers started saying, why don't we make a sequel?
Hmm.
Because we did so successful in the screenings, maybe we could do something better. And I said I wanted to try something different, and then we did a Grim Becoming, and that story is its own story.
Right.
But I didn't have something because I loved that film so much. I didn't have something in mind, so I would always jot down ideas and things and different versions of scripts. But in like 2016-ish, Kristen came to me with this idea, various different ideas. She came up with the title Ombis Alien Awakening.
Mhm.
There was a long debate if we would put the two in it or not, you
Sure.
know. But because we want to honor the first film so much, we decided to do the two. Well, but I would write, she would write. We took a trip to Maui
Ooh.
before the fires happened out
Hmm.
there in Lahaina, and we spent a week. Um, the whole flight I was writing,
Sure.
and then I spent a couple days just on the beach, literally writing this story. So
Nice. It's that's
yeah.
not a bad environment to be doing your writing in.
No, I wouldn't say it's a bad environment to do the writing in any fashion, to be honest with you. I think it helped
Mm,
really create a good story. And I got, not to get too personal, but I have
sure,
personal struggles that I deal
sure.
with daily. And being a filmmaker has really helped,
Mhm.
um, help me get through those days. So I'm
See,
always filmmaking something.
you're not the first filmmaker to tell me that part of filmmaking it helps them quite a bit with some of their personal challenges. So yeah, I can totally understand that. So we've got a sequel. Who's coming back? Now, granted, again, a little spoiler if you haven't seen the first one, folks. It's been 12 years. Still go see it, seriously.
Yes.
But it's online. But who's coming back?
Well, let me ask you this. Who is the
Yes,
first person you want to see back?
I want the sheriff to come back.
You want the sheriff to come back.
I want sheriff. Yeah,
Well,
I, I love that
here,
character.
here's an exclusive just for you, sir.
Mm.
Okay?
Hmm.
He is not coming back.
Mm.
He is the only character that is not returning to Ombis 2.
Ah,
And it,
I
it broke my heart. I don't
sure.
know how many times I met with him for dinner and this, I tried to get him back, but Richard's response was, why would he want to go back and do that again?
Oh,
Like, yeah. So like creatively, I assume is
sure.
what he's meaning.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you know, we have a significant story element about
Mhm.
his character
Oh, okay.
in
Sure.
the sequel. So
Hmm.
his character's not in vain in any fashion. But we have Jason John Beebe returning as Mark.
Hmm.
Sarah Manzella is returning as Lucy.
Sure.
We have some surprising, we'll just call them returning cast members in some other fashions that may
Sure.
have been killed off in the first film. But I have Alexander McBride. I don't know if
Mhm.
you recall him. He played Mr. Gray in the first
Oh,
film.
yeah. Hmm.
He is back, and his performance is the man's got it, man. He's one of my favorite actors.
Sure.
Truthfully, he's one of my
Hmm.
favorite actors. Um, who else is that's coming back that I can think of just off the top of my head? Um, you know, uh, those are the principal
Hmm.
actors. And now I'm working with Angel Bradford, who is like blowing up
Oh, yeah.
everywhere all over
Hmm.
indie film.
Yeah.
She was a pleasure to work with.
So, with your returning characters, we're looking at a 12-year span since you filmed and shot it. So what's a little bit, can you give us a little bit of teaser what your sequel's about? Is it right after the events? Is there some time between the first
Sure.
and this one?
Yeah, Ombis 2 takes place coincidentally about 13 years
Oh,
later
well, there you
from
go.
the first film.
Sure.
And it follows the Haley character who is now, an
Hmm.
adult. And she believes that she believes that the government covered up the invasion from the
Right.
first film. And that's kind of how we left the first movie
Hmm.
is a chemical plant, blah, blah, blah. All that was at the end of the first film. But she wanted to expose
Right.
this as a larger
Hmm.
thing because she was only one of a few people that got out of Metzberg alive.
Right.
Um, Come to find out, there's somebody else that did get out of Metzberg alive that we did not know about from the first film, and you're going to see that when you watch this film. But it goes big. It
Hmm.
goes big. We go to space. We use robots. There is a drone that is in the film. Hopefully, that will make the final cut. I've had some decisions on that one that I'm going through. But yeah, man, it's such a fun film. It was such a fun film. Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you're doing the time span because when you said how long between the movies, I'm like, okay, if you have returning characters, how are you going to explain the age difference? I mean, Hollywood doesn't though, so you don't necessarily have to, but one of those where, wait, wasn't she a kid in the first one, and how is she older now? So,
and
yeah,
it's really great too because you have a new generation of people coming into an old generation in story,
sure. Hmm.
and bringing something new to it. And Paige Cummings, who plays Haley Greenheart, she you can't take your eyes off her. And
Mm.
when you have Sarah Manzella come into a scene with her as Lucy, the two actresses, they bring it, and they bring it in the biggest way possible. Um, and I'm very excited for people to see that how much Lucy has adapted and changed in this
Sure.
film. But there's a lot of animosity between the Haley and the Lucy character that we
Right.
explore in this one.
Yeah, well, and speaking of change, what kind of changes? Yes, folks, it's about aliens, so there's aliens in this film. Okay, that's not much of a spoiler, but what kind of change did you in the production design? Did you decide to change up the look of the aliens from what we saw of them in the first one? Or they got an updated look?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The Nemesis has been totally redesigned,
Mm.
but he does get his signature hat.
Oh,
Uh,
yes. Okay, good.
yeah. So he
Yes.
does get his signature hat, which is definitely a thing.
Mhm.
And that was like one of the biggest selling points to doing the sequel was he had to have the hat, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
anyways. But we also have Obi returning from the Horrific Evil Monsters.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and
Oh,
he is was such a great story element to the Horrific Evil Monsters, and I wanted to explore more.
sure.
And in this film, we explore a ton more with like the Obi character and the Nemesis, and how Obi was a slave and how he came to Earth. And then this film would take place before the Horrific Evil Monsters. So
Oh,
Horrific Evil
okay.
Monsters would take place after this.
Sure. Oh, that yeah, I can see that in the continuity for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm excited to see Obi come back too, so that's cool.
And with Obi, there could be another Alex Creed moment. So we'll see if Bishop Stevens ends up returning to the film or returning to his
Sure.
character. But yeah, there's a lot of there's like this buddy comedy like I want to write between Bishop Stevens and the Obi character. Um, we'll see if that ever happens. Those things never come to fruition.
Buddy comedies. Yeah, I mean, there's room for them, especially nowadays. So they seem to be coming back a bit. What films, if any, that did you pull from that influenced your Ombis 2? I could kind of see them, in Ombis 1 you could see the Blob and
Mhm.
some other influences. What about Ombis 2? Were there any films that you
Yes.
were inspired by for this one?
Yes, very much so. One of the biggest ones that had a biggest influence on me as a kid was Independence Day.
Oh, okay.
So, so as a kid, seeing that huge spectacle of a movie, I was very inspired with that and those types of effects in that movie
Right.
to put them onto my version of a story. And so, yes, that is one of them. Another one is you can't for because the first one was so heavily influenced by The Thing.
Yeah.
Not the whole story, but some of the ideas that we were playing with
Hmm.
because we had, been
Sure.
inspired by it. The opening with the Earth and all that. That was like, how the thing.
Oh,
Anyways,
absolutely. Yeah.
so these are not just to take anything; it's to respect and homage these things in a way that honors them.
Right.
So yeah, um, there
Yeah,
you have it.
we've had I've had many discussions with my friends the difference between ripoff and homage. In fact, we dedicated like a whole episode of my podcast to trying to discuss what the difference is. And I think for me personally when I see it, I'm like if you're doing it in a very similar fashion and you get the feeling you're aware you're doing it, I think it's but you're doing it because like you said, it's something that you loved and it's influenced and you wanted to pay homage to it versus something that maybe may not acknowledge that they did it at all. They're just like, oh, it's just a coincidence or whatever that was a similar shot or what. Then that gets into maybe a little bit of
I'm
ripoff.
not
But if
I'm not going to tell you, Mark, that if somebody said you had the right to the Blob, that I would not remake the Blob. Okay.
I can
Um,
totally see it. I can
I
totally
would do
see
it in a
it.
second, but like I don't have the rights to that, and I didn't
Sure,
have the rights
sure,
for the first film, so I had to figure out a way to do my own version
sure.
ish, of that. and it's still the slime creatures still manipulate the same way.
Hmm.
So and it actually more, a little
Yeah.
more cooler. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
No, and that just makes me look forward to this film further because I like the slime element, though I also like the homage scenes. Like again, rewatching the first one, the drunk guy discovering the landing. I'm like, oh, this just feels just like from the Blob in a good way. It's one of those things where I loved that
Would
scene
you
and
like
that.
a spoiler?
Oh, sure, sure,
Spoiler. Bob Bozak, who was that actor,
yeah.
plays another character in this film.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And he makes a comment if it makes the film kind of similar to how Return of the Living Dead 2
Yeah.
did with the characters.
Oh,
So
nice.
we'll see if that makes the cut, but know
Sure.
that it does exist.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So I mean, with this, you've done a number of genres, though you mostly stay in the horror genre or horror sci-fi, that kind of either paranormal or whatnot. What is it about horror that you enjoy so much and makes you want to create these films?
Yeah, it is a good question. I don't know if I have an answer to that. Sometimes creatively, as a person, I need an outlet.
Hmm.
So I write these stories that I believe help that outlet,
Hmm.
and hopefully people enjoy. Now, not everybody enjoys my films. I don't expect everybody to. I've read reviews. I'm not. I've made that sin, but it doesn't mean some of the films have not been successful. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Hmm.
People say they don't like something, and then all of a sudden, something tells you a little bit different. Recently, we got into Walmart for Fang, and that's been a big, awesome adventure. So I'm pretty cool with that. But what makes me tick with this is I just want to make magic, make the audience like really think, how did he do that? What was it? How did he do that? But that's what I'm inspired by.
And that's great. And yeah, I mean, having turned my focus to indie film over the last now 12 years, um, I think people who may just be the casual viewers may not always appreciate what's going on with a small indie film, like your first, Ombis, may not appreciate exactly what you're doing with what you have. But I think if people become familiar with it and learn what went behind it, while some people may say, well, that shouldn't affect you, but I'm like, well, it does a little though, because I'm like, if wow, they made this with no budget and it looked like that. Holy crap, what if they had some money? It's one of
And
those
this
things.
time we do.
You
This
do,
time
yeah.
we have some money. So I'm going to show you all what we're going to do. Okay. I wish we had more money, but I will tell you what, if you look at our Indiegogo campaign, just that alone, and we also have private investors, but just that alone, um, I mean, that shows you a love for that first film that people
Sure.
want to see more.
Hmm.
We left a cliffhanger with why was the Mark character abducted at the very end? What was
Right.
his deal? You're going to find out what his deal was. It's very important to the story of Ombis 2. So many great moments to share.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it's going to be one of those films.
and I'll have a link for that campaign in the body of this interview in the description for sure, to help push that. But yeah, um, I just think people, uh, don't all they're always used to something Hollywood look, but if you can put some aesthetics or some of the challenges aside, there's a lot of all fun movies out there that that's what they did with a small budget, and you think about what they do with a big budget, and there's talent, and you could see a lot of great things in smaller indie films, but some people just can't always get past the possibly micro budget aesthetic because
Yeah.
hey, you know, uh, we didn't have audio equipment, so we strapped a mic and some duct tape to a stick, and we held it above the act. It's so that's why it doesn't always look that great.
I feel like I know a story of that, but not from
Uh,
me, not from me.
yeah, but
I Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I have worked with this one. I have multiple microphones, but I have worked with this one microphone since Ombis 1. So the microphone that we used in Ombis 1 is one of the many microphones we use in Ombis 2. And I find that to be so cool because like it lasted that long
Sure,
and it made it to the sequel. And I didn't even tell you when we were talking about returning people. I have a stunt coordinator, Datu Tim Hartman, is his name. And he like came back from the first film, did all the stunt choreography because there's a big epic fight in the end of the film, much like the first film.
sure.
So yeah, very exciting stuff.
It sounds definitely very exciting. And, you know, uh, the Indiegogo, I hope you can meet your goals or surpass them for it. That always helps out. And I think folks out there sometimes don't realize just what goes into making a film in general, much less one where you're trying to actually put some investment into it. And the fact you got your stunt quarterback, you got fights. I mean, this is a complete film, folks. This isn't just Adam's not just shooting this in his basement like I probably will end up doing at some point. But no, he's actually he actually doing this solid work, and I think it pays off, especially, and we've seen it in your other work as well. With evil, horrific monsters and that. I think you could always tell the artists who put forth the effort to actually make something and those who are possibly throwing something together just because they think they can get it out and make a quick whatever with it. I'm not saying many artists are like, but there's a few people out there that I think, they're producing a lot, but what they're producing may not always be solid, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. They're just producing and throwing it out there. And sometimes it's good and you get a gem and other times you don't. But
This has been a 3-year project already.
yeah, and
And
this I was going to say this has
yeah.
been a long project for you.
This one's a little bit longer, but because it's so important to me, I needed to make sure it got the love
Hmm.
and the tenderness that it needed. I made sure to do everything I could to get the entire original cast back. The Richard Satterwhite thing is a sad thing for me because I really wanted him to return.
Sure.
Um, but things happen and people do what they do. And some people aren't interested in the story. But I will give him credit because he did help me write a scene, not literally write, but gave me an
Right.
idea to help write a scene. So I will give him credit where credit is due. But the other thing too is you do get to see the Metzberg jacket again in this film.
Oh, nice.
Uh, so it's like a signature thing for the
Sure.
the Jason character.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you're in post now. You're working on it. As we mentioned, you're looking for finishing funds in that. What is your tentative plan of when you may have this completed out, or is there not one? Is it just until you feel it's finished? Uh,
Well, I'm expecting June of next year.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
expecting June of next year. If
Mhm.
June of next year does not pan out, it'll be October.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I originally wanted to do it for the a March release
Mhm.
because it was like the anniversary,
Right.
but I don't want to put the extra strain on me to
Mhm.
get this film done. I think by June, that will be enough time. We have already a year's worth of work and edit already into it,
Sure.
so it's very exciting because we're gonna do a green carpet event.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
I
a
like that. I
green
like the
carpet event.
variation. That's a
Yeah.
that's a that's a slick variation. That's really cool. That's great. Well, where can people keep up with your progress and what where it's at and whatnot? Where what spin your socials if you could, where people could follow on the project and future
Of
projects as
course.
well.
Of course. Ombis, you can just type that right in there on that good old Facebook. You can find us. I'm Adam Steigert official on Instagram, Adam Steigert on Facebook. I do not use Twitter.
Why
Snapchat's a
not?
little
Gee.
Snapchat's a little outdated for me.
Yeah.
But you can find me on the TikTok, what all those cool kids are doing these days, the TikTok. Which I really do like TikTok because I just recently opened up a shop there where you can rent you can buy some of the films or
Hmm.
merchandise from some of the stuff that I've done. So if you get a chance, check out that. That's Adam Steigert official as well. But overall, future projects. The one question that I've been asked a lot lately because we've been doing Ombis too,
Sure.
is would there be an Ombis 3? Because so many people believe in trilogies.
Yeah.
You can't just do two films and then
Hmm.
you know um this film, when you see it, is a pretty definitive film.
Hmm.
However, I do leave a little something in there if you can catch it. But if you don't catch it, maybe it'll never come to fruition. We'll see if people actually want to see Ombis 3. Maybe they'll watch Ombis 2 and be like, not, then it's not for me. So we'll see.
Or another story within that universe, maybe not necessarily a direct Ombus sequel. Spin-offs are pretty big too, so you never know. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. No, a
maybe.
spinoff would be good. I really I'm going to tell you this. We had this project called Dead West, all right?
Mm.
And I get yelled at even mentioning its words. I'm surprised like a SWAT team hasn't come in here and already attacked me. And by SWAT team, I mean my wife,
Your wife,
because
sure.
it's her baby.
Mhm.
And but it's a zombie western.
Oh,
And both Phil and Jill, who worked on Amas 2, said they would come back and do a zombie western
sure.
if if it was something that we were going to do.
Right.
Because I was going to take a break from making films for a bit, but now here we are again in negotiations, always a negotiation, you know?
I think that too is something that people aren't exactly aware of, the behind the scenes stuff. That's why you actually have uh, producers, and why producers are given so much credit for some films is because they handle all that other stuff that when you're an indie filmmaker and you're wearing multiple hats, you're doing both. So you're doing
Yeah,
producing and directing in that, but there's a lot of paperwork, negotiations, coordination, all of this stuff that also you have to deal with that I think people don't realize when you're doing producer and director. I've talked to a few other folks recently who are doing the multiple hats, directing and producing, and they're like, "Oh man." Like that producing angle of it, it's like if it's just direction, no problem, but throwing the producing responsibilities in there is tough.
it is. And every day, like, so we've been working on the film for over a year. We shot the film last month in June. Now it's like all shot. So to get to that point was a pretty hard thing.
Sure.
People don't realize, like every day after work, and I call it work, I was going home and doing the budget sheets. I'm like,
Sure.
all right, so how much money do we still have left? How much more time can I have this actor on set? Can I do this? So it's very important to indie people to create budgets for yourselves
Hmm.
because that is going to get you through most of it.
Awesome. And any other quick advice for any aspiring filmmakers out there that want to get into the crazy business that is indie filmmaking?
Well, I'm going to write a book, but the
Ooh,
first chapter of the book is
sure.
gonna be called "Don't Do It." And if you can get past the chapter of "Don't Do It," and continue reading what that book will entail, then I think I think you can get through a lot. Um, to my advice to filmmakers is just create every day something. Write, draw, digital art's a big thing nowadays. Just get yourself in there somewhere and um, dedicate yourself to it and believe in yourself.
Mhm.
Um, that's what I would tell you.
Fantastic. Well, great advice. Great talking to you again, as always, Adam. Folks, keep an eye out for Ombis 2. It's sure to be a lot of fun, especially if you liked Ombis 1 or if you just like your indie genre films out there. This sounds like it's going to be a big one. So, thank you, Adam. I'll put links and everything down below, and hopefully, we'll get a chance to talk again.
Yes, great, Mark. Thank you very much for having me.